Man podcast. We're talking to Bodhi Aldridge, who has been working with men for 30 or 40 years now. I learned so much having this conversation with Bodhi, guys. If you are interested in understanding where you are in your life on your own contemporary hero's journey, because it's not just something that happens in the movies, it's a real way we go through life. That's why it's so appealing to us when they make movies about it, because we connect with it mentally, because you are on your journey. So if you're interested in understanding where you are in that journey and how to achieve true freedom, because it's not what most of us think, you don't want to miss this conversation with Bodhi Aldridge. So let's get into it.
Here's the million-dollar question. How do men like us reach our full potential, growing to the men we dream of becoming while taking care of our responsibilities, working, living, being good husbands, fathers, and still take care of ourselves? Well, that's the big question, and in this podcast, we'll help you with those answers and more. My name is Brent, and welcome to the Fallible Man Podcast. Welcome to the Fallible Man Podcast, your home for all things man, husband, and father. Big shout out to Fallible Nation. That's our longtime listeners who have just been around forever. I like to call them something. And hey, a warm welcome to our first-time listeners. There's a lot out there competing for your attention. We know that. We're grateful that you're taking time to check us out today, giving us a chance. Be sure to reach out to me at The Fallible Man on Instagram or most any other platform. Let me know what you thought of the show. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you really enjoyed it, be sure to share it with a friend or leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. That helps other people find us. Today, my special guest is coach, author, facilitator, and speaker, Bodhi Aldridge. Bodhi, welcome to the Fallible Man Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brent. I'm excited to be here and see where it goes today.
Now, Bodhi, how's your trivia? We like to start light here.
I know, trivia and US trivia. That'll be interesting. So we'll see how we go.
I tried to go international just for the benefit. If you guys didn't pick that up, Bodhi is joining us from Australia today. Or in your case, last tonight or?
Yep, tomorrow morning. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So, Bodhi, which fast food restaurant has the largest number of retail locations in the world? Is it A, Jack in the Box, B, Chipotle, C, Subway, or D, McDonald's?
Oh, well, I'm tempted to say McDonald's, but I'm going to go Subway just to mix it up.
Okay. It's a curveball there. I actually expected McDonald's. Everybody answers that.
Yeah.
So you guys know the rules. Don't cheat. Don't look it up. For God's sake, don't write it down if you're driving. Please be safe. And we'll come back to that later because, that's so important. Now, Bodhi, I don't do huge introductions. So in your own words today, in this moment, who is Bodhi Aldridge?
Great question. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. And I spend a lot of time asking this question of myself and with my clients, because at the deepest level, the essence of who I am, is different to what I do. And so I love surfing. I love playing with the grandchildren. I love coaching, supporting people. Yet underneath that, there's an essence, there's a spirit, there's something deeper, which I'm constantly wanting to access and bring to the world. So that's how I hold that, Brent, is the being and the doing.
Love it. What is your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood memory, I would say one of my grandsons just had his 10th birthday. And on my 10th birthday, I got a brand new bike. It was, over here, they were called dragsters. They had the big high handlebars, and this is in the 70s. And it was orange. It had the big banana seat. And I remember, my mum was a single mum, and she saved hard to get that. And that was my pride and joy on my 10th birthday. So a great memory.
I think I had that same bike. Pretty sure. I just remember the vivid orange and the banana seat.
Yes, that's right.
Kids today will never know the joy of banana seats. Like, they were ugly, but man, they were really comfortable.
They were.
I haven't seen one of those in years.
Yeah.
Bodhi, are you coffee, tea, energy drink, soda, or something else?
Coffee. Yeah. I transformed to coffee like a lot of people. So just two in the mornings. Yep. That's a nice treat that I enjoy.
All right. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
Yeah. Again, a great reflection I have. Having children and grandchildren who are establishing themselves, I feel I would definitely want to support them, give them a level of financial certainty. And I've set up and support a local youth service here for disadvantaged youth, particularly disadvantaged young men. So I would definitely, just make that a nice, profitable little organization.
I like it. I like it. If you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I've heard you on this one before. So if I take nutrition out, so my favorite meal of the day is the morning, and it's oatmeal. In your language, porridge. And that's such a staple for me. So I don't know if I could live on it, but that's my go-to for sure.
I understand. I like steel cut oats better than regular oats. I don't know. Do they have that down there?
Yeah, that I agree. Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
what it is. I like them a
Yeah,
lot more like regular oats,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I can hit a big bowl of steel cut oats any time of day very happily.
yeah, exactly.
What are you most proud of in your life?
My beautiful marriage. Yeah, children, grandchildren. Yeah, Amala and I, we're actually just celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary. We've been together 45 years. Yeah, amazing.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
huge.
you. Yeah, beautiful woman, incredible friend, partner, spiritual guide. Like, just so blessed, and yeah, so proud that we have created what we've created together.
That's I love hearing those things, man. That's
Mm.
you people. My wife and I are about to celebrate our 23rd this month, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, you've been married so long." It's like, oh, my parents were married 40 some odd years. I've been around all these marriages that lasted so long. So I'm like, 23. We're on the way.
Yeah.
There are days I'm
That's
still
right.
like, whole thing could fall apart if she, gets tired of my snoring or something. What
That's
is your
true.
biggest personal pet peeve?
My pet, you know what comes up for me? I don't know what it's like in the US is trivia. Um, people who pull up in their car and leave the car running while they're on their phone, or they're waiting to pick somebody up, or they're like, just something triggers me when, like, they can sit there for 10 or 15 minutes. I understand if it's really hot and you got to have your aircon on, but if you stop your car, stop your car. It's like, and for some reason, I don't know whether it's the environment, whether it's the fumes, whether it's just one of those things where I'm just like, you're sitting in your car while it's running on your phone, putting all those fumes everywhere. Why? Why?
For me, it
Uh,
strikes me as like a disconnected action, right? If I stop and put it in
mm,
park, it's almost
yeah.
automatic to turn it off if it feels like I missed something.
Mm,
So maybe
mm.
I don't know, maybe that's it, right? You're like,
Yeah. It's a funny one. Yeah.
I love it. That's the great thing about pet peeves, right? Everybody has their own individual, like, this gets under my skin. And it's so funny because people will tell you a pet peeve and you're like, really? That bothers you?
That's right.
And other people are like, oh, I hate that. Everybody's so individual.
So
But
true.
you wear a whole lot of hats, at least figuratively. Maybe you do in real life too. I don't know. Maybe you have a huge hat collection and I just don't know. But at least figuratively, you wear a whole lot of hats in your life and the things you do. So tell our audience specifically what you actually do as a coach. Is like I said, researching you for the show, like, wow, you are a busy man. You got a lot going on.
Yes, I'm off to Europe next week actually to run some retreats and conferences, and fundamentally my mission, is to create a global community of men who are steeped in this work, and my passion is to ignite the inherent magnificence in men. I believe every man on the planet inherently is magnificent and capable and beautiful. And most of us have forgotten. And I know it's a big generalization, yet if you sit with the essence of that, the possibility for our listeners, for you and me, that deep inside we have a magnificence, that our essence is beautiful and lovable. To me, I'm just passionate about reminding and supporting men to remember that and take it to their children, to their marriages, to their community, to their business. And I do that in, I do some one-on-one coaching. I've got 17 men from around the globe in a 9-month online transformational program, leadership mastery program. I love nature-based retreats. I do a lot of nature-based retreats. I'm off to the UK, to Spain, to France, where we get men in nature. As you know, the connection with nature, stilling, getting more present. And yeah, from a work point of view, that's predominantly it. Obviously, doing lots of podcasts. I run my own podcasts and just getting the message out for men that there is a way through this, that you are magnificent. Yeah, and there's lots of support out there from people like yourself and myself.
See, I need to update my branding, guys. You heard him. We're magnificent. Like, I've never heard another man say that, so I'm going to enjoy this moment. That's not, especially, I don't know these political and social climates of Australia, obviously the way you would, but I know in the US we're slowly passing the toxic masculinity phase. You don't hear it said as much, but right, one of the morning shows that I shall not name, I'll be nice, one of the big network morning shows, like, they just went off on how men are unnecessary. And it's like, that may be the stupidest thing I've ever heard come out of their mouths, and that's pretty impressive because they said some really stupid things in that show. But yeah, it's so actually, hearing a man say, no, that's not accurate. It's we're magnificent, and I like it. It's just not language we hear over here with that. So thank you for that. What pushed you down this road?
Yeah, I guess my hero's journey, which we'll probably talk a little bit about, and the listeners would have heard, variations of that. Typical probably for a lot of, people in my industry is, parents separated when I was 7 and didn't have strong male role models. So I think for me, it was finding what it is to be a man. Yeah, through my own inquiry, through my own journey, through my own search. And, meeting my wife quite young, having children young, I suddenly went, wow, now I've got to be a husband. Now I've got to be a father. And I kind of didn't have those role models. So being a lifelong learner, I kind of, I traveled, I inquired, I, went deeper and deeper into my journey. And it wasn't that I was doing it for myself and my marriage, because my wife is amazing. And she said, look, I just don't want to be married to the little boy for the next 40 years. Like, you got to step up. You got to grow up. Yeah. And because I didn't have a role model, I just dived into that, workshops, books, mentors, guides. Like, what is it? What is it to be a man, a contemporary father? And then after many years of, my first career as an attorney, which mum said, go and become an attorney. And, like all good boys, I went and did that. And obviously that had its benefits, looking after my family. And then late 30s, early 40s, I transitioned, and there's a story around that if we have time yet. I transitioned into coaching and facilitating, and more just saw so many men owning their own business in leadership who were just seeking a deeper experience of life, really, like ticked a lot of the boxes, married, mortgage, business, kids, and realized that all the work I'd done on myself, all the skills I had as a coach and a facilitator was actually perfect for these men, because a lot of them were like 20 years younger than me. It's like, well, here's a bit of a roadmap. Here's some, choices you could make. And so it's been so fulfilling to be able to give back to really, I'm 62 next month, and I really feel like an elder. Like, I still surf every day, do my yoga every day, run around with the grandkids, but I also have a level of wisdom which I'm feeling comfortable to own.
I'm loving this conversation because I'm looking at you going, okay, here's the next iteration of Brent and the Fallible Man. Yeah, 20 years from here, right? I see.
Yep.
I'm loving that. What is something everybody should know about you, Bodie, before we dig into today's subject?
Well, I'm a lifelong learner, and whether that was in my DNA or in my, psyche or personality, I'm not sure yet. I feel, and again, words of invitation to the listeners is there's something about curiosity and being inquisitive and inquiring about this journey. Yeah. And I think I think that's something about me. Like I'm always learning. Yeah. And as much as it may sound like I've got my stuff sorted, I know there's more to grow and learn.
Awesome. Awesome. Guys, we've been spending time just getting to know who Bodie is. In the next part of the show, we're going to talk more about that contemporary hero's journey, what that actually looks like in your life in practicum. Now, you may have heard of this before in the manosphere, and I really hate that word, but in the manosphere, this is something you hear if you're into the creative industry, like writing or filmmaking. This comes up a lot. There's some variations on it. So for our audience who may or may not have an understanding of what we're even talking about with the contemporary hero's journey, Bodie, you want to kind of explain what that is or how that's understood?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And, good reference to the creatives and to the movies. And I guess, the seminal work was Joseph Campbell, a US academic who researched traditional cultures and realized that storytelling, which is still so important today, storytelling was such a part of traditional cultures, a lot of oral traditions. And they talked about the hero's journey and the heroine's journey. And essentially what that is the mythology, the collective myth of this journey as a man. There actually is a map. There is a map as to our journey as a man, and there are different gateposts on that map. And because pretty well every culture he studied had similarities, he put together that map. And then if you overlay that map with a lot of the other work that's been done around leadership development, around personal development, and around the contemporary journey of a man, particularly, most of my clients, probably similar to a lot of the listeners, married, living in the Western world, mortgage, either running their own business or in a leadership role, and often have children. And so, when we talk about the hero's journey mythology, we look at the movies, it's like, well, how does that apply to me? I'm living in suburban Washington, having to, get through all of these things. And that was my journey. And I realized it does apply. There is a map. There are milestones that you can experience. And that's a big part of my work, to really support men in that situation, men across the board, but certainly men in that situation, to have a different experience maybe than just feeling like they're on the treadmill.
Now, if you don't really feel like you understand this, just think of your favorite movies because
Mhm.
quote unquote the hero's journey, Campbell broke it down into 17-mile posts, if I remember right. People who want to simplify it basically break it into 3 segments, but you've seen it in pretty much all of the best movies because all of them, that's the ironic thing about it. All the movies we love contain this hero's journey story. And so you're familiar with it, whether you think you are, you just may not have called it that over your lifetime, but it's talked about in the world of men pretty frequently because it's something we can all relate to. We all want our story to be epic. We all want our story to be big. We just don't always understand the journey involved with that. And guys, we're talking like Lord of the Rings. We're talking about all of the big epic movies, Last Samurai, right? You just start naming them in your head, you'll find them. They're all there. But we don't think about that in the terms of our lives, right? So when we look at this concept, how do we start to look at our lives and recognize that as part of our actual journey?
Yeah. Star Wars was, that script was rewritten with influence from Joseph Campbell, Indiana Jones, for some of the older listeners. and fundamentally the search, the search for the masculine, is the Holy Grail. Yeah. And the Holy Grail, the deepest desire of the masculine is freedom, true freedom. That's what
Yeah.
we're searching. And that's what was mapped out in the hero's journey. Yet what happens is, as young men, yeah, we're closest to the Holy Grail at 16 and at 45. Yeah, that's when we're actually in mythology. That's that's the initiation. So think about, for a lot of the listeners, in your teens, 16, that's often when a lot of the existential questions come up. What is life all about? What does it all mean? Often because we don't have support, we don't have a rite of passage, we suddenly get propelled into college or apprenticeship and life. Yeah. And in our 20s, we're searching for the grail outside of ourselves. We're looking, we go partying, we go surfing, we go hiking, we go to India, that inquiry. It's like, where is this freedom? Yeah. Because there's a yearning. And what happens is that at some point, for most men, and certainly most of the listeners, and often it can be late 20s, early 30s, we realize, the Holy Grail was at the bedside table all along. It's within us. It's within. That's the work we have to do. As much as it's fun looking outside ourselves, searching for freedom, thinking it is sitting on a mountain on my own, not having a marriage, not having a mortgage, that's freedom. It's like, that's actually the distortion. And when we start the inner work, and that's the first part of the hero's journey. The mythology is that we hear the call, maybe late teens, the whisper, the sense there's something else. Yeah, but we deny it. We resist doing the inner work. We want to distract ourselves, keep ourselves busy, have lots of fun. And then the first part is when we hear the call. Yeah, and it's a wake up. It's like, I've actually got to do a little bit of inner reflection here. Yeah, and that's when we really start to lean into, what is this journey from the inner and the outer.
No, wait a minute. The entry point to Raiders of the Lost Ark look a whole lot more fun than doing a bunch of personal development. Just saying. That portion of the story looked like a whole lot more fun than some introspection and personal development. And I do a lot of personal development stuff, but I got to admit, that looked a little better.
The great thing with that, and the great thing with all the movies, and one of the fundamental teachings I offer men, is that probably the easiest way to connect with that part of yourself is in nature. Yeah, and that's where we experience it. I mean, it's fundamentally, whatever that personal development, quote unquote, it's really the willingness to just to be present with yourself and get to know yourself a little bit more. And nature can often afford us that, because it creates a stillness. There's a sense of awe. There's something else. There's a bigger mystery. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find it in other ways as well. So as daunting as it may sound, the reality is it's just a willingness to get to know yourself a little bit more through reflection, silence, presence.
Now, for some of us, the idea of getting out in nature sounds like a lot of fun. Like I went to high school in central Wyoming. If there's anywhere that's still the wild, wild west in the United States, it's Wyoming.
Yeah.
And I used to get out to the mountains a lot. Just me and my brother, and we'd be gone for days up in the mountains. It's ironic because that was in the 90s, and my parents were like, "Bye, don't die, have fun." As a father now, I'm like, I don't know, I'd ever let my children try what we did back then. But we'd be out fishing or hunting for a couple days, or just out hiking, and it was a place where you have very large, powerful mammals that can make a meal of you. You find out you're not the dominant species without a firearm. But not all men are comfortable with the idea of going out in nature. You said it's easier to be in silence and pick that up there.
Yeah.
So, for our listeners who are not necessarily outdoorsmen, no disrespect to them, I understand it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
How do we start to tap into that and sense that? Because you said that's intricate to our journey.
Yeah. One of the programs I run, the online programs for men, is called From Distraction to Presence. And if you get a sense of your thinking mind and how distracted we are in the Western world, men and women, yet particularly men. So exactly. The phones, 80,000 thoughts a day, most of them are negative. The inner critic, the not good enough, the saboteur, the who am I, all of that. And for a lot of us, we've just been conditioned this way. It's not good or bad. It's just what's happened. And so our thinking mind, the Hindu saying is your thinking mind is a fantastic servant. It's a terrible master. And so one of the keys, it's like this very fast train, Brent, that we wake up, it's really, really, really busy. And if you want to stop a fast train, you don't jump in front of it. You've just got to slow it down. And so if it's not in nature, which is a way to slow it down, a lot of the listeners may find that through exercise. They may find that through some sort of movement. Yet one of the most powerful ways and one of the most challenging to slow this mind down is if there's somewhere in your house or apartment where you can just find 5 or 10 minutes a day to just sit still. Yeah. Now your thinking mind will kick and scream. Yeah, I need to check my emails. I need to check my apps, scroll, whatever it might be. Yet if you can sit still without distraction, it's like training your body. It's like training a dog, training your body to sit still. Just sit. 5 minutes, just sit, nothing. Your thinking mind will kick and scream, but eventually this train starts to slow down after a week or two. And then you start to notice, what are my beliefs about the world? What do I do every day? Is that true? Have I spoken to Brent about this? Maybe I could talk to some other men. Maybe there's another way of doing this. You just start to inquire as to what's going on for you. Have you just bought or drunk the Kool-Aid that this is the way life has to be? Or have you got the ability to reflect? And that's one of the key things in leadership, working with business leaders around the globe. The most effective, quote unquote, leaders have a daily reflective practice. Now, reflection can be sitting still, it can be contemplation, it can be prayer, it can be meditation. It's just reflecting on, some of those other questions instead of just being on the hamster wheel, on that treadmill, wake up, get going. And that's why, again, nature, somewhere quiet in the house. You can do it a little bit with exercise. There may be a local park. We're just wanting to just slow it down a little bit and do a bit of reflection.
Let me ask you this, because one of the things I've found on my own is the majority of people are terrified to be alone with their own brain. Like part of the reason we don't sit still is those 80,000 thoughts. And like you said, most of them are negative. All attack us at once because we don't know how to silence them. We don't have control over them yet. We haven't mastered that. And so the majority of people are terrified of silence. They're afraid to be alone with their own mind. I find a lot of people struggle with the idea of meditation or anything like that, any kind of quiet reflection time because of that. So for the men listening today, if that silence is uncomfortable, how do we start there before we can drink the whole Kool-Aid on this and try it full blow? How do we work ourselves in past those screaming voices and get more comfortable with our own silence?
Well, the first thing to know is the most valuable asset you have as a man, no matter what training you've done, no matter what courses you've done, is your attention. That's the key. Where your attention goes, energy flows. So if you get to the edge of wanting to master your attention, become aware of your attention, and it gets scary, that's the hero's journey. That's the edge. That's your comfort zone. And it's okay. Just notice where it starts to get uncomfortable. Remember, the edge of your comfort zone is where all the fear lives. And fear, F-E-A-R, are false expectations appearing real. Psychological fear, as opposed to instinctive fear. Psychological fear is the projection of what's going to happen if I slow down these thoughts. What are people going to think? Whatever the story is. So great if you're there. I just want you to acknowledge that's the edge of the comfort zone. That's exactly the hero's journey. And if you can master your attention, now to specifically answer your question, the easiest way for most people, if they're very fearful of this, is just slow, consistent movement, just walking. Walking is one of the most powerful things. Like if you're physically able to, and you don't want to sit still, but you can just find even 5 or 10 minutes of movement, yeah, where your body, your mind, yeah, your attention is engaging your body. My intention says I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk. But what we know, the studies around the neuroscience, around the embodied presence, is that when you start to move your body, and for a lot of the listeners who may have a regular practice in the gym or whatever, they will know that you start to slow the mind down. We're starting to slow this train down. And so that can be the simplest. Yep. Some sort of simple, really simple, movement without your devices, not running with your headphones on or walking with your phone in your hand. Just see if you can do it. Is that simple enough, or is that still too confronting?
No, I think is a good place to start. That's the thing, is we all have to find that place to start. Starting a movement is a whole lot easier solution.
Yeah.
I might have said something like, start with 30 seconds, start with a minute, just
Yeah.
being still and being quiet. I did
Yeah.
a interview, good Lord, 4 seasons ago, I think, or 3 seasons ago, and with a guy who got into, now I'm going to go blank. I have all my books behind me, my authors, with Nate Rifkin talking about the standing meditation, and it was a specific stance in
Mm,
one of the meditative poses that he moved into and started doing it. We were talking about developing that, and that's how I started, like, practicing as I was going through the book, was
mm,
30 seconds, because learning to hold your body in the position to start with is uncomfortable, right? Getting your body into this position and holding it and actually physically thinking about it and being present with it takes some work. And then you're also
mm.
with your mind screaming because you're being still. And we edged in 30 seconds at a time, 30 seconds at a time, a minute at a time, right? But I love
Yeah.
the approach of just walking. There's a lot of
Yeah.
power to that, I think. And I think is a lot more doable for a lot of us to approach,
Mm.
right? I can go for a walk and I notice the world a little bit more. I'm a little less in my head,
Yeah.
especially if I get away from town, right?
Mm.
I think that's a good start with something, because it's really uncomfortable for people to be still and silent these days with everything going on in our world.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And if you can really connect with, if you think about the assets you have and the listeners have, you think about, your financial assets, your families, maybe your emotional, your physical assets. If you can just connect with the possibility that the biggest asset I have is my attention, just the possibility of that, and maybe even reflect on that, because what I know is if you can connect with that, whatever the listeners are looking for, health, wealth, freedom, love, relationship, parenting, money, yeah,
Mhm.
this is the fundamental shift. Yeah, where's your attention going? Where's your attention going?
Now, on your website, I saw a quote that says, "All men long for freedom. The problem is none of us really understand what true freedom means. We think it's being something external, more money, more time, and an endless summer, but true freedom comes from within." Now, I think that's going to take us from this portion, as we talked about, getting to that edge of the comfort zone, right? Stepping
Yeah.
off that comfort zone into our hero's journey. I think this is taking us that direction. And in this part of the show, we're going to follow that train a little bit farther, based on a statement that Bodhi has on his website about what true freedom looks like for men. Now, Bodhi, I'm going to let you run with this some because I think there's a whole lot of value in what you're doing with this, because we're all so distracted by everything around us and what the world says is success and freedom, and but you say is something different. So let's go that direction.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And remember the Holy Grail. Yeah. So in all mythology, as we've touched on, the hero's journey, whether it was King Arthur, whether it was Luke Skywalker, yeah, the Holy Grail is true freedom. That's what we're looking for. And it comes from the inside out. And to give you the simple distinctions, there are two key parts to true freedom. One is freedom from, and the key is freedom from suffering. And how do we suffer? Well, we suffer when we resist life. Yeah, we suffer through the inner critic. Yeah, through our thoughts. We suffer when we resist our emotions, when we push them away. We suffer when we're attached to things. Yeah, attached to outcomes. When we resist, when we contract. That's all of the suffering. Yeah, that these teachings will let you release. So freedom from suffering, and freedom is our true nature. It's our essence. Brent, you have two daughters. Yeah. When your daughters were born, did you not just see and feel innocence and love?
Oh, incredibly.
Exactly. And that's the essence of all of us. Yeah. The deepest part of us is free. It's life. If you think about purpose, I do a lot of work around purpose, and the three pillars for the masculine, just so you know, are presence, purpose, and passion. Passion for life. And so purpose, the reason we're so inquiring about purpose is the context of purpose is meaning. I want to have meaning for my life. If I have meaning for my life, the context of meaning is to fully express myself. That's what we're looking for. How do I fully express myself? Yeah, comes when you remember that you are magnificent. As I've touched on, that your essence is whole and complete, that who you are has incredible opportunity. And I'm not saying this is easy. It's simple, not easy. For some of our listeners who are, in difficult situations, one of the first shifts on the hero's journey is the shift to realize at the deepest level is I always have choice. I can be the victim or I can be the creator. Yeah. And it's not easy when you're in it. But if you start mastering your attention, you start to realize Nelson Mandela had choice. Viktor Frankl had choice. Aung San Suu Kyi has choice. Yeah. They realize it's difficult and their freedom is incarcerated, which is different for a lot of us. They realize that no matter what the external world is presenting, there is still a choice. Remember, Brent, the external world is meaningless until you give it a meaning. Yeah. And you can be the victim. You can be at effect. You can go into blame and judgment and they're not good enough. That's okay. Or you can come back and go, maybe I could shift this. Maybe I have choice. What's the one step I could do today? What's the one movement I could make today to start creating a different reality if you want to? Yeah. And as you do that, you're starting to unleash the essence of who you are, the magnificence of who you are. One of my fundamental supports for men is a lot of people say, do what brings you joy. What I say is bring joy to what you do. Most of you, the Holy Grail is not far away. Look at your children. Look at your marriages. Are you resisting or are you embracing? Yeah. Are you bringing joy to what's in front of you? Yep. Or are you sitting in the victim, resisting, blaming? I'm on the treadmill. Oh, poor me. Woe is me, having a pity party. Yeah. Again, nothing wrong with that. If you can make that shift, if you can realize I do have choice here, and then you can start to reach out, inquire, lean in, talk to someone like yourself and go, if I have choice and I can master my attention, wow. Wow. Imagine that. Imagine that, Brent.
I like it. I like the idea of mastering my attention. I know that's where you tend to start with a lot of the guys you work with. Uh, for you guys who aren't on the video version, earlier when he was talking about attention, I held up my phone because you guys have all heard me rail against how much time we all spend sitting on our cell phones. I try not to rant too often, but that one really gets me because that was the one my daughter called me out on a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, and it
Yeah.
really threw it into sharp. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, right. I didn't even know. Like it's terrifying. I tease people all the time. It's like, look at the screen time because your phone
Yeah.
tracks that. Look at the
Yeah.
screen time.
So,
How much time you're
yeah.
spending.
So if you think about attention and energy and the life you desire and how much of it's been, distracted by, often the phone. When I work with couples, sometimes the first thing the wives tell me is, can you just get him off his phone? Yeah. And what we're distracting ourselves from. So the three responses to life, Brent, when we're in our defense, we're either going to react, we're either going to distract, or we're going to repress. That's what we're doing in each moment when we're in that place of defense. And one of the biggest ones I've seen that's grown so much is distraction. Think of the ways we distract ourselves. Our phones, our devices, our scrolling, food, alcohol, even exercise at times can be a distraction. Working long hours, the badge of honor. All they're doing is distracting you from being present. And remember, you create your future in the now, in the present. Yeah. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Who am I being now? Yeah. And to your example with your daughter, being present with your daughter with an open heart, seeing her beauty and her innocence. Yeah, will add a lot more value to your life than an hour on the phone running down a rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now there are a lot of guys out there right now who are listening and going, I still got to have a job. I still got to go to work.
Yeah.
Right. How do we start to take the steps to go on this hero's journey? Right. We're looking at it and we're hearing this and going, yes, I need to change. I need to, start to reshape my life and move
Yeah.
towards this. But I still got to make a living. I still got to. So how do we start walking that path?
Yeah. And it's a great question because all of this is an inside out job. When I work with people who go, I want to find my purpose, what I say is, well, there's the inner purpose first. Yeah, because they think it's changing jobs, changing marriages, changing cars, changing locations. Yeah, that's just the outside in model. Yeah, and we know how many people do that, particularly in their mid 40s. Yeah, and it doesn't bring what they're looking for. So fundamentally, I had a client just yesterday. He was telling me he was a painter, house painter, domestic painter, and it's a tough job, repetitive job, and married, children, and been working with him for a little while. And he started to ask questions about this, ask questions about his purpose, and the key thing he told me, he was in the middle of painting with a colleague. They were doing a large house. And he said, what I realized is I could bring joy and passion to the painting. He said, before I was resisting it, complaining, I've got to do this. I really want to be doing something else. And he said, once I shifted that perspective, what I realized is that I can bring joy to this. I can bring passion to this. I'm providing for my family. I'm enjoying the fact that, gratitude is a great tool. Now, what happens, Brent, is that if the listeners could just shift their perspective just a little bit at a time, and you do need to provide for your family. You do need to keep your job or your business. You do need to work. And the manifestation tools, that are there in the context of where your attention goes, energy flows. You'll be surprised. If you commit to this 6 months, 12 months, you'll start to see an incredible change. And it may be you leave your job or not. That's the paradox. A lot of people think I've got to leave my job because I don't like it. And I'm like, well, let's get the inner work first. Let's get some joy and passion into your life first. Because if you don't shift this, it doesn't matter what you shift externally.
Bodhi, where is the best place for people to start connecting with you? Because I feel like I could take this episode several hours long, and we'd be scratching the surface. Where is the best place for people to continue this conversation with you?
Yeah, thank you. I have a podcast, True Freedom, which is on all of the podcast platforms. On my on my website, and there's a link, I think, in the show notes, www.freeminicourse.com. It's a short mini course I put together about freedom and flow. And then in that, at the end of the course, there's an opportunity to reach out. I'm always happy to talk to men, connect with men. As you know, my passion is the magnificence of men, the work you're doing, the listeners. Like, this is, one of the things I know in my journey, married, mortgage, business, kids, is this isn't for, you don't have to go to Burning Man. You don't have to be some spiritual guru. You don't have to sit and meditate for 10 hours a day. Like, simple tools are available for every man, who can start to shift and have a totally different experience of their marriage, of their parenting, of their business. And so anyone who's feeling that calling, please, click on, reach out. Plenty of information there on the website, and love to have a chat with anyone who's feeling called.
What's next for Bodhi Aldridge? Any big projects coming up you want to share?
Yeah. I've got 5 weeks in Europe, which is interesting. And one of the interesting projects, Brent, that's showing up is, what is the future of male leadership? Where are the role models? Working with a lot of men like yourself, 40s, kind of going, okay, I want to be a different man. I want to be a different leader in my business. But who do you look up to? And so for me, I'm really excited. I've got a few panels that I'm on having that conversation. It's like, what is it? What does it look like? Who is the man, as you say, Brent, that you want to be at 50, at 55? And who do you look to? And it's one of the biggest tips that I'd give the listeners is to find men who maybe have started the hero's journey, like a mentor, or, the saying of, who are the 3 most important men in your life? It's you, your closest peer group, and your mentor. Because we learn from other men. So, and these conversations. And again, we know that with whom you mix, so shall you be. So, I love going to the footy and having a few beers and having a cookout. I do it regularly. And I'm also more selective at times, that I want to hang with people who are a bit more inspiring, a bit more uplifting. As much as some of my old friends are good fun, some of them are stuck. And I'm not judging them. It's just that I know, for me to be a better version of myself, I kind of got to look around again. Where am I putting my attention? Am I being uplifted and challenged by my peer group, or am I just stuck, like we were in college?
Yeah. It took me a long time to realize that mentors were extraordinarily valuable in life, and peer groups, as much as you love some of those old friends, are not necessarily moving the same direction you are, no matter how much fun they are. Now, I know all of you guys are worried about the answer to the trivia question: who has the most retail locations in the world? You actually nailed it. I would have gone with McDonald's, but it is Subway. You're correct.
Yay, an Aussie.
I totally would have gone with McDonald's, because that's their game. Real estate. People think they make hamburgers. They own real estate. That's what they do.
Very well.
Well, even Ray Kroc told a Harvard business class the same thing. It's like, I'm the business of real estate.
Yeah.
Like, he never ate his own burgers. His kids never ate his own burgers. He's like, you can make a better burger than I can. So what do I actually do? I own real estate. That's what we own.
Love it. Love it.
So I would have thought it was that. But yeah, no, Subway's it. And I got to admit, like, I've been through a lot of little towns where the only fast food place was Subway. So it kind of makes sense. Now, Bodhi, if our listeners heard nothing else today, they didn't take anything else out of this conversation, what do you want them to hear before we leave?
You are magnificent. You have a choice. And there are men like Brent and myself here to help you. So just remember that. yeah, whoever it is, yeah, just reach out and start to get to know yourself a little bit more.
Guys, for myself and Bodie, thanks for hanging out with us today. Thanks for giving us a listen. Be better tomorrow because of what you do today, and we'll see you on the next one.
This has been the Fallible Man Podcast, your home for everything man, husband, and father. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a show. Head over to www.thefallibleman.com for more content and get your own Fallible Man gear.